Hey Carol, how are you?
Hi.
How's your partner?
I really can't talk about that, but
Fair enough.
this is very undonna. Oh, there she is. Okay, good. Yeah, I came in earlier and there was no one here, and that really surprised me. But anyway, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone, this is Donna, and we're doing some Procreate and tech tips with Sequential Artists Workshop, and we're just talking about color drop. So I'm going to actually start with talking about color drop, and we can continue what we were talking about. Gonna pin my iPad, and we'll just make a file. I use screen size for examples. And I'm going to pick a nice solid brush and I'm going to draw some shapes. So, whoops, have to be closed shapes for color drop, because if you leave it open, the color will fill the whole page. Okay, so let's go in here. I picked a color, and if I drop it in the open one, it escapes through this little hole and fills the whole page, and there's nothing that can be done about that. But when I have the closed shape, it goes in. And now what we were talking about is when I put that in there, up on the top, it says continue filling. Now, I apparently am too slow to continue filling. And now I can just tap these other shapes without going back to the corner every time. So that's handy. We were talking about what if these were selected. And so you don't have to select anything here because you're filling into those in the same layer. But say you wanted to fill them on another layer. So you had the outline on one layer, the color on another layer. You can use automatic select. So select tool, automatic, and just tap in the middle of each one. Then you could do the same thing with color drop on a new layer. So we'll make a new layer. So we could drop the color in those separate circles the same exact way we did, or we can look at the new layer and open the menu and say fill layer, and it only fills what's selected. So that was just a one-step way to do that. So as with everything in Procreate and digital art and analog art, there's never only one way to do it. So yeah, I was going to do something like sort of heavy duty about perspective today, but we just got a new dog and I was having the migraines all week, so I didn't get that set up. So instead, I'm going to go over some questions that came up during the week in the Saw Mighty Network on anything else you want to talk about. So do we want to talk more about the color drop or any of that before I start with the list from online questions?
The only
Mostly,
other
I
thing
just
I
wanna
learned
say-
from that little video was that you can also color drop from your palettes, not only your selected color up in the circle.
Whoops, I've got some kind of drawing assist stuff turned on here. And I was using this document for something else before, so make sure we'll turn that off. Okay, so if I draw a circle here, my color is black. So if I was going to fill it, it would be black. So you're saying I can just go into here and pick a color and drop it in from there. Oh, very nice. So because you don't always have the color that you want to fill something with pre-selected. So you could choose
you have 6 different shapes and you want one pink and you want 2 blue and you want the other one, that purple one in the bottom
and you
row.
don't have to keep changing the colors. You can just go into your palette there and fill each one with a different color. Okay, that's really cool. That would save a lot of time. Yes, you don't have to select the color, then go all the way up to the top to drop it.
Okay, nice. I can't make it work on mine. So what am I doing wrong here?
Okay.
A trick I found, Beth, was sometimes if I dragged it over horizontally, like Donna just did, it didn't go. But if I pulled the color from the palette, like sort of down and around, then it would go. So it was a little finicky, but I got it to work.
It's not even moving.
Yeah, I noticed that sometimes I'm not sure if it's the latest update in Procreate or these little tips I'm using on my pen or what, but every once in a while, something, it just doesn't catch the way it's supposed to, and it doesn't work. So let's do it again though. So we draw a shape. We
Okay,
open
we draw
the
the shape.
color palette.
We're on the
Yeah,
same
we have to
layer
have
as the
something to
shape.
color fill. Yeah, we have to have something
Yep.
to color fill. Okay,
Yep.
then go into the color palette and click a color and hold it for a second and then drag it out. If you do it too fast, it doesn't work. I also found you have to do it slowly. Like you can't
There I
just
got
go like
one.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, see, if you just go like that, nothing happens. You have to kind of press and hold for a second before you can pull the color over. Yeah. So
Am I
that's kinda
noticing
neat, Susan.
correctly that the brush picture above the color circle is not highlighted for this? I am not seeing it change the way it would if I was actually using a pen or the brush feature.
No, we're not using the brush. We're in the palette. Right.
Right.
We're not in the brush. We're not using brushes. We're just in the palette.
And
So
it
yeah,
does
so
not,
no brush.
it doesn't work from the history line. That's what was messing me up.
Oh,
Yeah.
it doesn't work from up there. No, it has to
That's
be
what was
in the
messing me
palette.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the
Now let's
devil in
check
the
something
details.
else then. If you go to this palette where you have a ton of palettes, I wonder if you can pull from any palette. So let's just pick one, random one. Yes.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
you can pull
nice.
from any palette in this list, but it has to be the full palettes. It doesn't work with the history. And I don't
Right.
think you can pull from, you can't pull from the disc or anything else, just the full palettes.
Fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then remember, I always try to say this because I do this a lot. I'm gonna bring in just a photo. And please, I'll probably get in trouble with copyright police, but I'm making Lady Gaga into mummies for a thing that I'm working on. I'm making bad romance with mummies. So, but anyway, I wanted to show you, you can pick a color and you don't have to drop it just into an empty or solid area. You can drop it into part of a photo and you can drag left and right to colorize only a small part or more of the photo. So that's kind of a neat thing that you can do. And I do it a lot if I import a watercolor painting or something for a background and I want to change the color or see what happens. Sometimes I just drop colors in it and see what happens. So that color drop does not have to only be used inside of a clean shape or a solid shape. So
And
that's cool. Yeah.
that was through which one of these, not the wrench, but which one of those up there in the gallery?
Anything with color drop is with the color palette one. And you can be on any of these.
Right.
But you have to pick from the palette.
So it doesn't have anything to do with the gallery wrench thing over there?
No, it's nothing over here. Nothing to do with over here. It's only with this over here. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if you, that's a good question though, because if you use the selection tool and I select part of Lady Gaga, and then I go to the color and pick a different color and fill it, it will only fill the selected part. Or maybe it won't fill anything. So it doesn't seem to work in the selection there.
Okay.
If I use, and that's not what I wanted, see, because if you use fill layer, it does it solidly. I just wanted to drag the color in. Okay, so it worked from the little dot. So that's a bug. But see, if you do have a selection and you drag from the little dot, you can just color part of the thing. So, but you do not need, for the basic thing I was showing you, nothing here needs to be highlighted unless you want to make a selection. So back to the circles. right? If you want to color circles, but you don't want them to have outlines, then you could use the selection tool on freehand and draw circles, or you could use the ellipse selection tool to get a smoother shape. And then when you have selections, you can go back to your palettes and drag colors into them. And it doesn't work with selections. Okay, so it does from here. It's supposed to work the other way to selections, but we have just, oh, maybe it was because I'm not on the right layer. Oh, let's make a new layer and try it. I know I say this every time, but check what layers you're on. And you've noticed for me, every time I do one of these classes, I do at least one thing where I'm on the wrong layer, so it doesn't work. So if something doesn't work, check what layer you're on. All right, so it does work for selections. So there, I didn't have an outline. So instead of having a solid line that I'm going into, I had a selection and I'm dragging colors into them. So the selection only you use if you want to makeup only go into part. And so you can use that in combination. I'm sorry for making this more complicated, but say I have these circles and I could fill a whole circle with color drop, but if I only want to fill half of it, I can take the selection tool and say, I only want to drop the color in half of it. And so that's making it extra complicated. I was using the combination of the outline and the selection. But just to keep it simple, if you have a shape and you want to fill it, you don't need to make a selection if you have a solid outline. Okay? Does that? Okay, Beth, what was your question about selections?
I clearly do not know how to use that tool. Like, and you don't certainly have to, teach me, but like when you just
Were
did
we
the thing
talking about
where-
Lady Gaga?
No, I'm all the way back to the easy one where you have, I mean, I would like to talk more about Lady Gaga, but yeah. Okay, so I just finished like a 300+ page book in which I hand filled every single speech bubble with white because I did not know what you just showed us. And so I'm now going to mildly go away and have a small heart attack for those hours of my life that will never come back.
You can
Yeah,
select
shriek.
multiple inside of multiple shapes, which for us would be mostly speech balloons. Yes, and then if you wanted to fill all your speech balloons with white, you would pick white. I'm going to pick green because my background's white and it won't show up. And you go into the layers palette while you have it selected and you say fill layer. Yes.
Yes, and you could
So
even.
I'm sorry you didn't know that because it might have saved you a week. Yeah. But
So
how
then
do you
I'm
learn
left to
these
think,
things unless you?
yeah, I don't know. I clearly don't know like what that automatic selection tool does. I mean, I get it intellectually, but.
Okay, so let's look at selection tool a little more. Let's go into Lady Gaga though, because this is really interesting. So I'm going to add another layer and I'm going to do this again because mostly in our comics, or a lot of times in our comics, we have closed shapes that we've drawn in black on a white background, right? So if you put the selection tool on automatic and click in the middle, you can see this, it's not quite getting everything. See how there's those little dark pixels there? And I just had it, I didn't do anything except turn on the selection tool on automatic and click. Now what you can do is, to control it more, is turn on the selection tool on automatic, click and hold, and you can drag it to the right and to the left, and it selects more and less. And if you drag it all the way to the right, it even will end up selecting like your whole page. So usually you don't want to go that far. Once you let go, you can't start dragging back and forth again. You have to start your selection over. But to the right more, to the left less. Doesn't go down to nothing. But when you have, I didn't use a really sharp edge brush. So Procreate has to figure out on the edge where the the line I have is against the background. And in a comic, this could just be a black line on a white background. Procreate has to decide on all these, which ones to count as white and which ones to count as black when you select. And the dragging the selection to the right and the left tells Procreate select more pixels or select less pixels that are on the edge. Okay, so that's automatic selection on something like that. But you can also do automatic selection on a photo or a background that you painted or anything that's a little, you know, that's not just plain art. So if I want to just get her arm, I can see if I can do that. So I go to select auto and I click there. Okay, I got her and the other person and everything. So let's try again. And this time we'll drag lower, 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 lower. Can't quite get only her arm because it goes into her boob. So I can get most of her arm and then I can try to select another part and go lower, lower. And sometimes you can get parts of things like that with auto select. I can do it like, sometimes I do stuff like this, like in hair, and then I will, so it's selected. Not only I can drag a color in, but I can also take a brush that maybe is not a solid brush. And now I can paint some crazy stripes only in the part of her hair that I had selected. So that might not be like artistically beautiful in this case, but if you use the tools in ways that maybe they weren't supposed to be used, you can just do funky art things with it. So that's auto select. The main thing is to remember you can drag to the left or the right. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was alpha lock and clipping mask. Yeah, there's a couple things in chat. So yeah, I got these tips. One of them is I got these tips. They're super cheap. They're like, I don't know. I didn't pick any special brand or anything. I just picked a cheap box on cheap set on Amazon, like $7 for 20 or 50 or something. I like that it doesn't make noise, and it also adds a little bit more friction to, because my screen cover is matte, but it's not one of those really scritchy ones. So, but then it's nothing special. I really like that it doesn't go click, 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 and it feels softer. So it feels kind of like a felt tip marker versus a ballpoint pen. Okay. So, Sally, who I don't think is here right now, but that's okay. Sally was asking about she wanted to learn what's the difference between alpha lock and clipping mask. So I'm going to show you. Both of these are counted as masks. If you see someone that has a Procreate video on masks in general, both of these will be included in it. But we're going to talk about only two kinds today, which is alpha lock. So Procreate doesn't call that a mask, but a lot of digital artists do. And clipping mask. So I've demoed both of these before, but today I want to show you specifically what's the difference. Okay. So what's the difference? Okay. I just drew some stuff and I'm just going to use that. Instead of drawing a shape, I'm going to use this. Say I want to add some more texture and some in a different color. I'm going to pick this really bright cyan. This is my CMYK palette. I'm going to pick the really bright cyan, and I'm going to pick another brush. Okay, here's a brush I have of dots. So if I go in here and I color with it, it goes everywhere. So I have no mask, no alpha lock. So I'm going to undo that. Now I'm going to go to the layer and I'm going to click alpha lock. So you can click the menu, click Alpha Lock, or you can take 2 fingers and swipe to the right to pick Alpha Lock, and the background of the little square turns into checkers instead of solid. And now when I color with my dots, look, it only goes where I already drew. Okay, now this layer, I'm going to turn the background off because I had made a yellow background. Outside of that stuff I drew, there are no pixels. There are only pixels where I drew in that layer. So I can't draw with Alpha Lock. I can't draw where it's already blank, it stays blank. But where it's already colored or already has pixels, I can add new pixels, and I can do whatever I want with that. I can try to color drop into part of it. I can't color drop into the back because it's already blank. So whether I'm using brushes, whatever, when I turn on Alpha Lock, it forces you to color between the lines. Okay, so I have that now. I'm going to leave my background off. I have that now, but well, now I can't like just easily select the whole letter because it's got different colors and texture in it, and it's not really solid and stuff like that. So I'm going to duplicate this layer. I don't feel like drawing it over, and I'm going to change the hue and saturation. I'm just going to make the whole layer black. I dragged the brightness all the way down. I did saturation too, but you don't really have to, because if you drag the brightness all the way down, you get black. Okay. So now, you know, it's easier for me to do automatic selections here because the inside of each layer, each letter is just black. It's not purple with spots. And say I want to keep it that way so I can select it. I can, don't have to have Alpha Lock on. I can be on that layer and add another layer above it and click on the menu and say clipping mask. And a little arrow comes down pointing to the layer with the writing on it. Now I can do the same thing I was doing. I can pick a bright color. I can pick my dots. And when I color, it stays within the lines. Well, if I don't like it, I don't have to go undo, 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 undo. I can just turn off that new layer, and the layer below it with the letters is safe. I have not actually changed it, but I still colored only within the lines because that's a clipping mask. Does that make sense? It's on a separate layer instead of on the same layer. So with this one, in this one, I can't get rid of those dots now because I've done a bunch of other stuff. So I'd have to undo everything and hold down the 2 fingers for undo for like 10 minutes for it to go all the way back. So I really can't undo that. And if I leave the gallery and come back, all my undos are gone. So I can't undo that anyway. But on this one, I can turn that clipping, that second layer off and on whenever I want. So nothing is permanent. I'm not stuck with it. So, but I do have another layer. So if you're, you know, have a smaller iPad or you already have 90 layers in your drawing or something, you might not want to have extra layers. Okay, I want to show you something else. Something else you can do with this, and something that I was working on. Let's see, let's go in here. This is something I'm working on. And what is really cool here is I have this layer, right? And I have this layer. I'm going to make it solid. I had it partly opaque. So I have this picture of my great grandmother, and I have these shapes, which is sort of like a Russian doll. Well, if I turn my great grandmother on, the Russian doll is gone. Well, I only want my great grandmother inside the shapes of the Russian doll. So I can move her so she's directly above the Russian doll. And I already was using a clipping mask in this, so it got turned on because I moved it to that spot. So turn the clipping mask off. The photo, I still have the whole photo. Turn the clipping mask on, and it's only showing inside the
Oh, I
Russian
wish you
doll
could
shape.
see that. Incredible.
So, and you can do this with photos, you can do this with textures you drew, you know, the dots I was doing. I find it, I like to do like digital collage and stuff. So I really like to paste photos or other drawings I did inside of shapes like that. So that's something else you can do with the clipping mask. And then you can have more than one. So you can have more than one layer attached to the shape. So here I'm holding just down the little checkbox to show you only this. Say I have this shape, I have grandma, and now I want to add dots. So I can add another layer above that, and because it's right above this one that has the arrow, I can say clipping mask on that, it gets an arrow, and they're all attached to the same shape. So now if I take my brush and my dots, I can paint dots inside that shape. You know, I might not want to do it like that, but maybe I want to like colorize her shirt like the old photographers did. You know, I want to do something like that. Maybe I want to use a smoother brush like a watercolor brush instead, and a different color for her skirt. See, I can just go in there and it stays in the clipping mask. So the photo is locked to the shape and the other layer is. And then any layers I add in between the top one with the arrow pointing down and the shape will be in the same clipping mask. So I can just add as many as I want and do different things with them. Let's see, where am I? Got that in the clipping mask. I got a brush. Yeah, it's not drawing. Am I, whoops. What layer am I on? Oh, so, okay. So again, what's with the layers? I put a clipping mask in, I'm coloring. Why isn't it showing? Okay, because you can see in there, I made something, but it's underneath the photo and the photo is solid. So you can't see what's underneath it. So if I drag it up, it's still in the clipping mask, but it's over the photo and I could change the opacity or whatever, the blending mode, and do all kinds of funky things with it. That's when it gets more complicated. The main thing I wanted to show you was just using one layer versus multiple layers, like we were looking at here. So in this one, we just have the layer and then one layer marked clipping mask for adding color and texture to it. So then the advantage of that is you can turn it off at any time. If you decide you don't like it, you can delete that layer, you can start over. This one, once you leave Procreate and come back, it's totally locked in. You have no undos to do, it's stuck. So sometimes that's okay, depending what you're doing. And sometimes you want to have that flexibility. So that's the main difference. They're both for coloring within the lines. Alpha Lock is on one layer. Clipping Mask is on two, it has two layers or more, but always two, at least two. The main layer, which is what you're going to be coloring, texturizing, whatever, and then at least one layer above it where you're coloring in the lines or pasting something inside the lines, anything. Any questions about that? Okay, so the main thing between those, Alpha Lock, one layer, Clipping Mask, two or more layers. There's another thing in Procreate called masks that's used for, in a completely different way. It's much more complicated to think about, so we're not going to talk about that today. We've got alpha lock and clipping mask. Okay. So the other thing that I was talking about with someone on the Mighty Network was how to import line art without the white of the paper. What if you drew something on paper and you just want the ink? You know, you inked something on paper and you just want to bring it into Procreate. So there's multiple ways to do that. So one is you just take a photo of it. So here's a photo of something that I did. And I just opened it in Procreate. Everyone knows how to open a photo in Procreate, right? Okay, so I just opened it in Procreate. You can see it doesn't fill the whole page and all that. So the first thing I would do to get this cleaned up, so where all I have is black lines. All I want is the black. I want everything else to be gone so that I can pretend I inked it in Procreate. So this is one way. Take a picture, import it. The first thing I would do is select white, select pure white, and drop it on the paper. So and then again, you might have to mess with the threshold. If you only get something like that, you can drag it back and forth till it gets what you like. So that got rid of a lot of the stuff. I mean, we're not nearly there yet. The next thing I would do is get rid of whatever I don't want on the page. So I would go into freehand probably, and I could just go around and say, you know, I just want this part, right? So I can copy and paste that. And now I've got two copies, one with all the extra stuff and one without it. So I make a copy because then I still have the original one there. And if I mess up, it's still there. Okay, so now just looking at the layer that is with the background of the other junk in the photo cut off, I might try dragging white again into some of that area, or I might not. So that's up to you. Here it worked okay. Sometimes you get too far and it starts doing wonky things and messing things up. Okay, so there we go. The other thing you could do sometimes is select black and drag black in to the black areas if you want to darken them. So that's just one thing. Another way to do that is to go into the adjustments, magic wand adjustments, and pick curves. And you can mess around with how dark the black is by dragging on the lower side of that curve, making sure it's on gamma. It usually comes up on gamma, not red, green, or blue, because you want to change the whole image. So I can drag that to like make the darks darker, and I can drag the white part to make the whites whiter. So, you know, my drawing was really a mess, so this is never going to be perfect, but that's pretty good. I can, you know, erase some parts if I want to, or not. Now let me turn on background color. And so you can see I still have the white of the paper, right? All I did was kind of adjust my contrast and make the paper white instead of tan or messy, wrinkly from my planner. I made the blacks darker. But if you go into the layer blend modes, so you click on the little N over here on the right side, and you turn this layer to multiply, everything that's white disappears. So now I just have my ink lines and, you know, the stuff that I can erase if I want to. A lot of times I leave this stuff in because I think it makes the drawing interesting. But of course, I drew this on not blank paper. If you drew something on plain white paper with solid black ink, you would have had not as much to mess around with as I did. I take crappy pictures of them. I just, you know, shoot it with my phone. You saw that I didn't even get good lighting or anything. If you take a nice picture and good lighting with the, you know, and on plain white paper with black ink, it won't be as messy as that. But I like that. I would use that. And now I can make more layers in there, and I can, pick colors and say, I want a pink mummy, and I can, paint on another layer, and I'm seeing through the black lines. If I turn this back to normal, everything behind it disappears. And you don't have to use only multiply. There are other ones you can choose that will make the white disappear and, do other things to what you have that's not quite black. Like color burn will make it, glow kind of. So you can play around with that. But so that's one way. I use that a lot because I like messy things. I like that the texture of this shows up and that, things like that. So that's one way to get rid of the background. Let's see. Another way is, that's what I did on this. I did the same thing on this. I started with that, ended up with that. So this was more like a drawn with the pencil. So it, scratchier. And not as black. I didn't make it as black because it's pencil lined, so I left it kind of grayish. Another thing that I can do is, again, I can either just open the photo or I can make a new document the size I want it to be, and I can go in my actions, add, and insert a photo into this document. And so I'm going to insert this. Come on. Insert a photo. This one. There we go. I'm going to turn it how I want it, whatever. So something that I do also sometimes is I use the automatic selection. And I will just click on black, drag it up and down and see what I can get. And sometimes you have to click a few more times because there's pieces that aren't attached. Like this nose is not touching any of the black. But got the background there of the fish, so that's probably too much. But again, I can copy and paste it, and let me see what I got. Okay, so this one's not so good for that. Why? Because the background of the fish is so dark that Procreate has trouble separating it. So that's not a good technique for that one. And of course, like I said, normally you would not be importing something that you're already colored and try to just get the black lines out of it. I'm probably the only crazy person that does that. Says, I really like that drawing I did and I painted in my sketchbook. I want to put in this comic, but I want to repaint it digitally. So I do mess around with stuff like that. But most people don't. Most of you would be inserting a photo. And I have an album of some nice photos I put together for SAW demos. And you would be importing something like that, which has like kind of white paper and kind of black lines, right? So with this, the automatic selection is brilliant. So, I mean, yes, I do still have to click on multiple parts and I can copy and paste it. So I didn't copy all of that, but you can see that came out really clean. Another way you can do it is to go on that original layer. And instead of trying to select the lines, select the paper with auto select. And then go down here and click clear. Well, that didn't quite do what I wanted it to do. So let's do it again. And let's try cut and pasting kind of menu. So normally you would swipe down with 3 fingers. I changed mine to tap with 4 and it cut. All right, it cut the paper out. So you can select the background and get rid of it. You can select, and this is kind of cool because it left the inside of my shapes, right? So if I do it again on the ground and cut it, now my paper is gone. Let's change the background color so you can see. See, You can see the background through, because the paper's gone, but the insides of the drawings, the paper is still there. So that's, sometimes I do that, and as a part of my process. And then for this, I would probably just take the eraser and just erase around the edge the junk that I, didn't want, because I don't need that. And then, I could do more stippling there and Procreate or copy and paste part or things like that. So you can use the selection, auto selection, to either select the lines and copy and paste them, or to select the paper and delete it. You can use the curves to make the white whiter and the black blacker. I'm going to show you two other things I do that I use that you can do with other apps. So this I learned from Louis Ringersall, who teaches on Carlos Sondheim's website. He has a couple classes there. I think that's who I got this from, but it's an app called Cam Scanner. So this is a photo I took with the Cam Scanner app of something that was as dirty paper and ugly, as the other thing. So I'm going to show you this, and I installed it on my iPad, even though I use it on my phone, just so I can show you it. And it's new, so I'm going to say, it opens up like this, and you could go into here and you can take a photo. Well, I can't because my iPad's just sitting on the table and there's nothing. But you can also go into your photos that you already took. So in this case, I'm going to I think I told it couldn't see all my photos, that's why. So now I'm going to tell it that this app can see all my photos. Okay, skip. Camera. You would take a picture, okay? Since I can't take a picture for this demo purposes, I'm going to go into my photos. I think my pen tip is dying and I need to replace it. Okay, it's not going to work there. So I'm going to pick this one that I showed you before. Okay, watch this. It's really cool. Now, it looks white on the screen to me, but on my iPad itself, it's yellowish. It didn't come out perfectly white. So I'm going to say import, or in case I would click the camera and take the picture. Now look what it did. I don't know if you can see this. It drew a line. It can tell where the page is. So it's automatically getting rid of the stuff outside of the page. Then I click next, and look at that. It just cleaned it up. And it has these different options here. So that's the original. So you can kind of see how it got the background. It's still in there. There's one called No Shadow. There's one called Lighten. Magic Color is the one I usually use for getting this art. So let's just say Magic Color. And I can share this. I can save it to my photos, but I can also go right to Procreate. And it's confused because it thinks I'm on the phone. So it said Pocket. But look, it opened it in Procreate, and that's, pretty good. We're partway there. Again, this was a super, super messy drawing on that planner paper that was not clear. This one, I just did the same thing, but it was just a plain white piece of paper with black lines on it. And that's totally usable. And it's totally clean. And I can do the same thing there. I'll change the background color and then change this layer to multiply, and the background is gone. Only thing is I have the free version, so it puts this little watermark on it. So when I take my pictures, I try to make sure that I leave some outside the edge to erase the watermark. And also, when it puts the lines around where the page is, I didn't get this one exactly right. You can adjust those. So Cam Scanner is that. So I showed you, you can import it, mess around with curves and dropping white into the background. You can use selection to select the ink or the background, copy and paste, delete. You can use this cam scanner app. And then the other app I use sometimes, I used to use this one a lot, but I don't use it as much anymore because I just mess around in Procreate with the curves and different things. But Medibang Paint is a free app that I got. No, leave me alone. Okay, and so it's a manga app, as you can probably tell from all the samples that's here. And I can say I want to do a new canvas, and I want to, you can take a photo, or if you already took a photo into your photo apps, you can say browse and import. And so again, here I can go into the photos I selected. I can pick, say, this one of me. And when it comes up, it says reverse line extraction. And I say extract lines. So yes, extract lines. And then it works like that scanner app. You can drag these up and down. Usually it gets it pretty good though. So you have the shadow, the highlight, and the mid-tone, and you can drag them around where you want. But like I said, usually it's pretty good. And when I say done, it asks me protect or don't protect. I never protect it because I'm not going to do anything else in Medibang Paint. I'm going to just take this now, and it's got a menu up here where I can say export PNG and JPEG, and I pick PNG transparent. And then again, I can save it to my camera roll, or I can click on Procreate and open it directly in Procreate. And there it is. And in this case, it actually already made the background transparent. So see, I got rid of I changed my background color and it shows right through. So that's 4 different ways that you can get line art into Procreate. So there's a couple questions in chat. Removing the white surroundings. Oh, Mariah said she didn't get it before, but now she does. Great. Yeah, there's multiple ways to do everything. And so like 2 of these require a different app, but both of those apps are more automatic than doing it yourself in Procreate. And it also depends how clean or messy your drawings are. So, okay, so that's all I had for questions and stuff today. Do you guys have any other things you want to talk about while we're hanging out? For we got a few minutes left in our time. How about palettes? Because I see a couple of comments in the chat about palettes. So palettes are colors, palettes. I have a lot of palettes, yes. Some of these I made myself, some I stole from other places and whatnot. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to change the background color back to white here. And I'm going to just put on a new layer. Where do I get all these colors? So well, you might notice that this one, I don't think you can see it from there, maybe, but it says palette from image. And this says Pieces of Me palette. So I made up this palette and I was working on something I called Pieces of Me. So I named it for that. This is my mummies palette. You can see there's a lot of colors for mummies and a few colors that are used in ancient Egyptian art. And then these are some tests and Dad Diary and my goddess project I did and my different comics. I have a palette for each. Some I got from other places, like these skin tones, and I got these 2 skin tones palettes from different places, and I find them really handy so I don't have to like fuss around. I probably only use 6 of these colors, but I just kept the palette. Okay, so how do you make a palette? Well, one really fun way is to take it from a photo. So you can click here when you have this palettes window open, and you have to be on the palettes tab. So you have to click up there on the little dot, then on this little thing on the lower right. So if you're on the disc or whatever the other ones are, you can't. You have to be on the palettes one. Then you'll see a little plus sign up here. So when I click plus, I can create a new palette. So if I do that, it makes an empty one. And where did it go? Probably on the bottom. No, maybe on the top. Yeah, it went on the top. Okay, so there's my new palette. Okay, not especially useful at this point. I can do, other thing I can do is new from camera. So if you're out somewhere and you're on your phone, you have Procreate Pocket and you see some beautiful scene, you can say new from camera, take a picture, and it will make a palette from it. I don't have my camera, can't use it here. I'm gonna say new from photos here. And then I'm gonna go look for something that has some interesting colors in it. Here's a, here's an ancient Egyptian picture I was looking at. I can pick that, and it made me a palette from that photo. So I can actually, I do this a lot. I can look for the photo. I can insert the photo in here. There's the photo I picked. Fit to canvas. And then sometimes I will screen capture this. So screen capture by pressing the two buttons on the corner of your iPad on the side where the pen attaches. There's two buttons on the corner. You push them and it screen captures, and then it lets you crop and do all things to the screen capture. So I'm going to crop that in. I'm going to copy it, delete it. This is basic iPad stuff. It has nothing to do with Procreate. You can do screen captures in any app. And now I'm going to paste it in there. And now I have the photo plus the palette Procreate made for it. And I do this a lot, and I save these in a folder on my iCloud, just so later if I look for them for inspiration and stuff.
Mhm.
So I have a ton of these. I do them from digital comics that I've been reading, photos I find on the internet. It can be a photo, it can be a drawing, anything. It makes a palette. Now, this comes back to the thing though, what is the good of this? Well, if I don't like how the automatic palette came out, like, oh man, it doesn't really capture the reds and oranges. It kind of missed those. It's not perfect, right? It does a thing. So I'm gonna make my own. So I'm gonna come over, and most people have this where you just touch the screen and it comes up, but I set this to this little box here. And so I wanna like get one of those like brighter orange colors. And I'm going to put it in my new palette. Oh, lost an earbud. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to pick this blue. And I can come in. Anytime you have a color that's selected here, if you have a palette with blank squares in it, you can just touch a square and it adds the color. So I can make my own palette from this image. And that gives me more control over which of the colors I capture.
And how did you make the little magic circle appear? Please.
Well, normally you just touch your screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's a default, but I set it to this little dot. So how come I told you something else too. For copy and paste, you usually swipe down, but I use 4-finger tap. You can change these things. You can change a lot of the gestures in Procreate. And that's in this wrench. Actions, preferences.
Oh.
And you go down to gesture controls, and there's like you can change a lot of things. So
Donna, which gesture do you use for layer select?
Eyedropper.
If you use do you use the layer select gesture? Because that's what I have to my pencil tip.
No, where you just touch a part of it and it selects that layer.
It identifies what layer
I have
it's
that
on.
set. I have that set to something, but I don't remember what. I don't really use it much. But yeah, it is handy because in Photoshop, you got that from Photoshop. Wherever you touch on the screen, it selects that layer. I don't use that one. But yeah, layer select. you can, oh, so I have it to touch and hold, layer select. Yeah, but you just go through and look at this. Again, I went into the wrench, preferences, gesture controls, and there's a bunch of things that you can change. So if something you don't like the way it works in Procreate, see if it's in here, and maybe you can change it to work a different way. So I did that for this color picker. I changed it to that, and I changed the copy and paste to 4-finger tap. Why? Because the other ones didn't work well for me.
Now you have a palette that I'm seeing, it says Untitled, and it has this blue that I've never seen a blue look like that blue because of what it's next to. It's right, where did it go? It said Untitled on it. That's, yes, it's that one up. Yeah, right.
This one?
Untitled. Yeah.
You want this palette? I don't know where I
Yes.
got it, but I'm happy to share it. I'll post
How
it
do
in
you
the
share
network.
it? Holy
Okay, so
moly.
yes, so you see this, and every palette has this little menu with 3 dots.
Yeah.
So you can set this as the default, which means when it's the default, it's the one that shows up when you're on the disk page.
Mhm.
You can share it. So I
Oh!
click share, and then I could message it to someone. I can save it to my files. I can send it in my email app. Yeah, so I would save it to my files right now. And I have a folder called colors. So I'm just going to save it. I'm going to call it Untitled, and I'm going to put Carol on it.
Mhm.
So I know that's the one you asked for.
Mhm.
And I'm going to save it on there. And now I can share this later with people by emailing it to them, by putting it in Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever. Yeah.
Oh,
So, and then you can get, if you get palettes from other people, I'm sure I have some in my files that I've downloaded. So I'm just going to go in my files. This is the regular files app on my iPad. Has nothing to do with Procreate. It's the Files app that's built into the iPad. And you can see I have it, they're called swatches. If you get them and download it from somewhere. So I have all these ones I got from different places. And this is called Sweet and Romantic Something Swatches. So I'm in my files. If I just tap it, it brings open Procreate. And now if I go into my palettes,
wow.
I think it brings it to the bottom. Yeah, Sweet and Romantic palette. And it was, whoops, it was down there way at the bottom. So that's how you would import one that you got from somebody. Yeah, I'm gonna delete this one because I don't really like it. It's a little bit, I don't know what. This one I like, I called it Donna's Beautiful Palette. I don't know what it's for, but I really liked the colors.
Yeah. That's
Some
what
of these
life's
I got
about.
with brush sets. Some of these came with brush sets. Like this is Lisa Bardot's artist pastel palette. So it's like giving you the colors of oil pastels if you had bought a set of them. This is from Aqua Atlantic, Snapdragon, different comics that I like. Yeah.
Oh, fun. Thank
I got to
you.
clean this out. Swamp Thing, Mary Shelley, Frankenstein comic. I love this palette.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, that's such a great.
so it's super super fun. And let me show you, then we'll be done. But on my iCloud drive, I made a Procreate file folder, and here's my colors. So yeah, I have all these things. See that this is the Mary Shelley Frankenstein page that I made that palette out of.
Oh.
I have tons of these. This is a children's book picture that I loved. I forgot what that is.
Wow.
It's probably named. Yeah, so I just do this all the time. I don't really, you'll notice trends because I put them in order, you know, I had them in order in Procreate. You'll notice trends of things when you swipe through them, like There might be a whole bunch with the purple and, but I noticed that I like, from doing this, I noticed something. I noticed that I like the contrasting colors or the complementary or split complementary colors, but off a little. Almost all of these things have complementary or split complementary colors in them, but if you pick it in Procreate, it doesn't give you anything as beautiful as these. It's like that, and then move it. So they're complementary colors, but they're not by the book. I never could figure out why I could never make complementary color palettes that I like. It's because the really good ones are not perfect. They're not just this and then go to the other side of the color wheel. They're like, go to the other side of the color wheel, go over here, and then get a little brighter or something like that.
Yeah. That's
So
what
this is
struck me
from,
about that blue. It just was singing right there in the middle of that palette.
Yeah.
And I wondered, how did that happen?
I will upload that palette. Yeah, and so I do this. This is how I like kind of learned the colors I liked in comics. And not necessarily colors I like in anything else. And it's not just from comics. You know, just that was just a picture I saw on Pinterest. And I never even read this comic, but I saw this image somewhere and like, oh my God, I just love that triad of that blue, yellow, and red, like paled out like that. And I would normally hate that banana color, even though I like yellows, but that just struck me. I don't know why. Yeah, so, and you can see what you like. So we talked about colors a little bit. Last time I said, look around your house and stuff. By doing this, I've seen what I like in comics colors by choosing ones that I really love, and looking at the combinations of colors in them. I've learned some things that I like, and I use them in my own stuff now sometimes. Yeah. So.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, well, we've gone a little over, but that's okay. Yeah, Beth takes pictures of art with palettes she likes. Yes, and it's really cool if you do it at the museums, because if you ever looked at a photo of like a Van Gogh painting or Monet or whatever, you'll find like every photo of it on the internet, the colors are a little different.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay.
This is
So
great.
that's it.
Thanks.
I hope
Yeah.
those were interesting off the cuff
Oh, yes.
things,
Yeah.
because I didn't have the brain power for finishing perspective today, but we will get that finished soon and then go on to all the other stuff on my list. So,
Oh, thank you.
okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.